an art class at Verona Senior Center. We're a continuation today of the class we started last week. The project that we're going to start with is using styrofoam meat trays. And what we did last week is took a variety of tools, like little knives and cake icers and corn picks and all kinds of things like that, to score and indent the surface so that we'll have a textured surface to work with. And this is a particularly good textured piece to take a look at. And so we did do that, and then from there we actually practiced on some that I had pre-scored for people. And so these are examples of our practice pieces last week. And a couple more. And these are examples of completely finished pieces where we've got the edges all painted nicely and paid some attention to color and how we really want the final piece to look. So today we're going to go to the pieces we scored last week, and we're going to start by putting paint on them. I recommend using your fingers. It's messy, but it's kind of fun. We're using 3 colors, primarily ultramarine, quinacridone red, and Hansa light yellow. Those are acrylic paints. And acrylic paint is like glue. It's sticky, it dries quickly, but it serves very well for this particular purpose. So Joan, why don't you just pick one to start with? Yep, doesn't matter. And
those, and they're these, all of these?
anyone. Okay, so start with that. And we'll take it from the beginning, and I've got a piece here. Okay. For each of you, there's a little styrofoam tray that you can use to lay out your paint, and that can be helpful. You can add water to thin it out, to cover a little bit better. You can also add acrylic gel medium, and we've got the matte finish and a gloss finish. And we've got Jennifer here with good strong hands to open them. And the good thing is we have a jar opener, one of our tools that we've used to make some texture, but also comes in handy for opening up the paint jars. So
okay, so we just put the paint
Yep.
on here?
Yep, and don't put out a lot as you get going,
right.
because it dries very quickly. Yeah, dries quickly. I'm going to start, I think, with a dark blue. Well, you can start with whatever you like.
Well, it depends on what we're gonna do.
Well,
I don't know.
it depends on how you want it to look in the
Fill in
end.
the holes or not. I
Right.
guess.
Yeah.
You just want to put one color on there again?
One is probably enough, but
Okay.
if you've got more than one, just go ahead.
Oh, okay.
So-
Do we try to fill in the holes, or do you just go anywhere?
You can you can do it either
Whatever
way.
you want.
That's right. I just got the hang of it already, so.
Good.
And you can see right away that the texture, all the little scores and little pokes and things that we did last week, right away start to show up when you get paint on them. Now, after class last week, I took these home and took them outside and sprayed them with a lacquer kind of finish. And that just roughs up the surface a little bit more and makes it more artistic and more interesting. But it doesn't smell good. I'm pretty sure that it's not something you want to breathe routinely, so if you do this at home, it's a good idea to wear a mask and definitely do it
Outside.
outdoors. Absolutely, yeah. So. And you can, okay. Oh, that's nice. Very nice. All right. I'm just going to put a little of the medium right on here, and that will spread the paint around a bit. Quite a bit.
We don't need Oh.
Okay. Okay, and I brought toothbrushes, and that can help you to get into those little crevices if you like. And so as I'm working on this, I'm going to first fill in some of the holes. And then I'm going to go over the top with another color, and those holes will show up again, but they'll be little dark spots.
That's what I'm trying
So,
to figure out. Is that our purpose, is to fill in holes, the holes, or not?
the end result is just to get an interesting look. And so if you fill in the holes, you're still going to go over the top, because then that will show, the dark will show underneath, or a bright color might show underneath. But if you want to, you can go very lightly, and the white of the styrofoam, or the yellow, or the black will be what shows
This is
through.
what you're putting all over everything then?
I did, yeah.
Okay, here you go.
And that just helps it.
Fill it up. Just all over everything, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Put it back on this?
No, she didn't have it on. that.
It's okay, yeah, it's okay to leave it on for a little
That
bit.
doesn't go away as fast as the other.
Okay, yeah. So I've filled in most of the holes here, and yet you can see a few little white dots where I've left them open. Now I'm going to go over this with a little bit of a metallic white. One of those. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
This. I gotta keep up with Mary, see?
Okay.
Now you're putting the white?
I did, and actually, because the paint is still wet, it blends in right away. And I'm thinking that I don't like that.
This seems to be a bit of done into the hole, but,
It does get down into
then my
the
fingers
holes.
weren't
Yeah.
doing too good.
Yeah. All right.
Now,
So, what I'm gonna do while I'm waiting for this blue to dry is to go back to my other piece and work with the white on that. So, what's fun and confusing about this project is that you're going back and forth. And so that's the tricky part, because you realize if the paint is wet and you put another color on, obviously the paint's going to mix.
oh, okay,
Maybe that's what you want, maybe it isn't.
okay.
And right now, I know I'd like to have white over the dark blue, so I need to let that dark blue dry. But until then,
Okay, that's,
I'm gonna look at this piece, so if you're ready, you can
Yeah.
let that one dry, okay, while we look at this.
I'll let this one dry.
Okay, and this is a piece that we did last year, or last week. Seemed like a year ago.
Piece we did last week.
That's
Okay.
right. And when I look at this after it dried, set it down, I decided that there wasn't enough light in this piece. Usually you like to have a mix of a light, medium, and a dark to make it interesting and to help the eye to move around the piece. So I've got a little bit of white. This paint's completely dry, and I'm just going to take it over the top of the edges. And you can see how it picks up the top little bits.
You're not gonna put it over the whole picture?
Not the
Just
whole
a few
picture.
places.
I just want to get a little bit of a lighter look here.
Okay, and that's,
And I'm just taking the tiniest dab, so there's not much paint there. And looking for the ridges.
is your piece?
Over there someplace, I don't remember what it was.
Let's see here.
My piece is there, because I wasn't here.
I think, yep, this is yours from last week, I got.
Okay.
So you can look at that, and you may be happy with it right where it is, and if so, that's fine. But if you'd like to do something a little different, look at the piece and where you've got indents, there's a little indentation there, and there's more of a circle shape, and you could do that with yours and pull some of those little details out some more. Would you like the white metallic, do you think, or would you like a different color?
I'm not sure.
Well, it's here, so just let me know what you think.
Should I do another one of these, or what would you like me to do?
You can work with this
I
one.
don't want to ruin somebody's.
No,
that's
that one
perfect.
was mine, so you go ahead and work with that one.
That was probably the perfect one.
That's the one she
Okay.
goofed up.
I don't know,
right.
it looks pretty good to me.
So, well, see if you
So,
can't pick out some little spots that might be more interesting.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so,
Here we go.
this- generally the metallics are fun with these.
So these are metallics, yeah.
Just the white.
What?
Just the white. I
That's
do
the
have
one.
a
This is-
metallic gold. Oh, I'm sorry,
That's
the
not
piece you
metallic?
have, the piece you have does have metallic on it.
And you also
Yeah.
have gold, this one?
I do,
Okay.
yeah. So, let's take just this
So is there a name to this mirror?
Well, that's a good question. I think it's called kitchen art.
Oh, okay, that's okay. That's good.
I'm sure you could call it a mixed media piece, a texture perhaps. So I'm just taking,
You're supposed to use a different finger. Are you using your same finger?
I am. Yep.
The red won't come through. Okay.
Well, your red is,
We'll see.
that one you want to leave and let dry.
Now that one, but I
Yeah.
need my red on my finger.
Oh, well, if it does,
We'll have a different.
You'll have
Oh,
it.
there's some water.
yeah. Yeah,
That's a good idea.
just do be a little careful with the water because the water tends to be too much.
And then we'll lose it or what?
Then it all kind of blends in and becomes the same color everywhere. So,
We don't do this very dark, right? We want it
you
light.
can see there's not very much paint on my finger.
I know.
Yeah.
Maybe I better put
And then
it on
I'm
and-
very
and then
gently
go-
putting that
Go
in.
around later.
Okay.
Do something different.
All right. So that gives this a little bit more texture. And I think I'm going to play with this even a little more.
Yeah.
I had 3 circles here that I made using the bottom of a corn pick. And I'm going to emphasize that a little more than it was originally. So there's the first one,
Do you want
there's
gold
the
or
second one,
yours?
and there's the
No,
third
I'm happy
one.
with the colors I have. Thank you.
You're happy, okay.
And so I'm changing that dynamic just a little bit. I've made these a little bit deeper, and I think I'm going to have a different color. There is a reason why we don't have a lot of different colors of paint for a project like this.
That's,
If you have too many colors, you end up with a muddy product in the end.
okay.
A few colors blend well and work well together, but if you go crazy with color, you will end up with
This
a
probably won't be my project. I want to get crazy with color ones.
I'm happy with that the way it is.
Okay.
Now, let's see, we're supposed to smudge.
Okay, so I've taken these 3 little circles and added a little bit of color there, just to give it a little more pep.
Everybody's is different.
Everybody's is different. That's the joy and the frustration.
That's why artists are so,
Yeah.
so good.
So, yeah. Let's see here. Okay, so
Plenty
I,
of color, that's for sure.
what's that?
I said there's plenty of colors. so-
Yeah? Now, what you did here is nice, where you carried that yellow through, that gives the eye a good path to travel. So you might consider yourself done.
Yeah.
You might want to go along the outside edges. You did with the red, didn't you? Okay,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So you really could be done right
Yeah,
there.
with that one.
Yeah, with that one. Now this one is still a little bit wet. So you can dry it more quickly just by taking a paper towel.
You can?
You can, and just, you're gonna take off a little bit of paint, but that's okay.
Okay, that looks fine.
Yep.
We're gonna quit.
All right, and I'm taking my red and my blue. And what happens with red and blue?
Green. Get
Purple.
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 That's good.
Yeah, all right. So, I wanna do something different down
I think I better quit. I get carried away, okay?
Yeah.
here.
I don't want to completely ruin Mary's scene.
No, that's fine, it
This
really
looks-
is.
Looks
Yeah.
fine to me, so.
Yeah,
I'm
all
gonna quit.
right.
No more.
Okay, so I added a little bit of purple there, and now I'm gonna go back. I'm just wiping my finger off in between. And take a dab of the white, and I'm gonna end up getting a bit of a more lavender color. And what's fun about these is putting them together in a group, just like we did with our painting with the circles in our first class. When you put them together as a group, you end up with a more interesting composition because it's the repetition and the different textures and the colors all together. It's like a patchwork quilt. Maybe each little piece of fabric on its own is interesting, but when you put them all together, you get something really much
Look at
more
it this way,
dynamic.
and I can see a bird. It comes right down to there and goes up there with its
Well, there
tail.
you go.
Oh.
Okay.
I saw that
So-
one.
Okay,
Okay.
so I'm gonna stop with that one,
Okay.
and you're done here with this
Yeah, I
one.
think I am.
All right, I'm gonna take that very carefully. We'll put that over here. And,
Okay.
yep, that one.
Yeah, that one.
Okay. So now you're back to your original piece.
Not dry, right?
Well,
No.
The-
I don't think so.
the top
Well,
layer,
I went with a paper
is-
towel one.
yep.
Should I go with
But
a
what's
paper towel?
down in the little indents is not dry, but that's okay because it's down below.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you go over the top with a thin layer on your fingers and a gentle touch, you'll pick up just the top layer and what's underneath will then pop out. So I think you could go ahead and try that.
So what am I to go over with?
Well, what do you want? Because if you use a pale yellow, you're gonna get an orange color on top. If you use the white, it's gonna turn pink, and if
Oh,
you...
white then.
White, okay. So here's
I
the
like
white right there.
And just
There you
real
go.
lightly over and
And
over
for you,
and
what do you
down.
think?
I'm not sure. Oh, maybe some.
We'll see how this works.
All
I'm gonna
right.
experiment here.
And you've got a little dab of yellow, so you could add that in and get a mix there of the yellow and the blue. And what we'll have then? Green. So, all right. So I'm gonna do the same with this. And I'm actually spread it out a little bit on your finger so you don't have a big chunk of paint.
Okay.
And you'll periodically need to clean your finger also because your finger is going to pick up and your white will soon become light blue.
Blue?
Well, or light pink, as the case may be.
Okay, right down there. See, your other picture had a name to it. Does this, besides kitchen art, have another name to it or not?
This is the best I've come up with, but if you have any suggestions, I'm all ears.
No, you're all ears.
All ears. Oh.
Okay, so now I'm going to actually blend the blue and the white intentionally on these edges to get a lighter blue.
that's a different piece, right?
Yes.
Than what you were working with?
Each one of them, yeah, I switched.
Okay.
Yeah. Each one's a little bit different. Here we go. So by bringing light around the edges, now the dark is a little bit more the focus, and it draws the eye in where there's some more texture to look at. So that's another way to look at that. And I don't want to do the same thing in every space. So what would be interesting around the edge? Something different. And what would that be? So
Okay.
let's try the yellow right around the edge. And there'll be a little overflow, and when that mixes with the blue, we'll have green. By limiting the colors, you make your job a lot easier.
You don't use too many colors.
You
Okay.
don't use too many colors.
Okay.
I know it's tempting.
So now, are you aiming to see the indentions?
Yes.
Is that it?
Yeah, ooh, nice. Yes.
Let me see. Okay. You're aiming to see the indentions.
Aiming to see them, and you can see
Yeah,
your red ones.
Yeah, you can see
I think
them.
you might like to
Oh, okay.
isolate a couple of spots that get more white.
More white on
Yeah.
the new spots.
So make sure your finger is back to clean, that's right.
Oh, boy.
Might
Yes,
be
you
a
can
tall
get it that
order
way.
today.
If that spot's
Yeah.
about right.
I can get it that way.
It's
Yeah.
possible. Okay, so is it,
So,
if you make more white, well, that won't make these seem pop out more though, right?
white would make them pop out more.
You think so?
But these are interesting on their own, and you've got lines down here that
Right,
maybe
lines.
if there was white here, that might be interesting to get the
Maybe go
white
this
down
way.
there.
Okay.
And then the other little bits, because there's quite a few of them, just could be
Right.
kind of a textural effect.
Is this white?
That's
This is
gold.
metallic gold.
That's why you like that?
White,
White.
white,
Is that white?
right here.
Oh. No wonder you can find it. You were hiding it.
Ah, okay. So on this one, the yellow rolled over the edge just a bit, no surprise. And so I'm carrying that in. And the yellow gradually becomes green.
Okay.
And I'm gonna go with that. And I think a little more yellow in a select few of these. Okay. So, a lot of people say, how do you know when to stop? I don't know. I have,
When you're satisfied.
sometimes I rely on the people around me. I mentioned I paint with my sister, and she will often say, stop, stop. And that's helpful. A lot of times I'll put something down and come back to it at a later time. And basically, I think we're pretty close to done here. Just gonna put a little white over here. And I want to avoid, I've got kind of a boxy thing going on, so I'm gonna come in a little bit on this spot and kind of break up my boxiness here. So I'm gonna call that one done.
Okay, that looks good.
And
You got admirers out there, they're just
oh,
not coming in.
we do. You're the brave ones. So,
Okay, now you want
Okay.
another color on there maybe?
what do you think?
A darker color, blue or green or?
If you put a
Purple?
blue, it will
Purple.
definitely go purple, and that could be nice.
Okay, a blue.
But now you could also be very particular and choose to put blue in each of those spots.
How do you do
Maybe,
that?
well, then we're
With a
gonna
brush?
break out the brushes. Yeah. So let's do that.
I mean, if you just wanted it a spot.
Yeah. Here we have a nice little brush just
Thought
for
we were
that
just
purpose.
maybe gonna do a few spots.
Whatever you
Yeah,
want to do.
that'd be fine.
Huh?
Just whatever you,
I think
feel
that's a
like
good
doing.
idea.
Okay, now you want me to do blue?
Yeah, I
and
think the
white,
dark blue and just actually select them one by one.
And just go in the middle?
Mhm.
Is it gonna stay that way or turn
It
the
will
other
s-
I won't
color?
say when you're done.
It will stay that way
Is this
for a
blue?
little
This
while.
is blue.
That's the blue. What will happen is as you continue, your brush is gonna pick up red and you've got blue, and so it's gonna end up getting a little more purple. And you can control that a little bit.
Try this, Mary.
Yeah, I can get that if you like. Here.
Before I ruin the tube, I think you
There you
better.
go.
Oh, thank you. Okay,
So it'll easily get a little more purple as you go.
you just put a dab in, you don't
Just a
rush
dab.
it, huh?
Right, just dab it in there. There you go.
Like
Just
that?
like that. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. And what do you think? Are you done?
I don't know.
Let's see. Tell you what, I'll hold this back here and you have a look. Sometimes you have to turn it more than one way.
I feel like I need to do something right and.
Right in there. Well, you've got some texture in there, so I think that would be a good place for it. So the question is what?
What, yes.
You could never do rose mulling.
You could do white, but take just the tiniest dab of white. I wouldn't do it with a toothbrush. I'd actually go back to your fingertip and take the paint and then lay it flat like that. So you have just a tiny bit, and then go right over the top of that. And then you'll have less paint and it'll stay more white. And then you may need to wipe off your finger more frequently also. There, see how that's stained? Now wipe off your finger before you
Do anything else, yes.
That's right, because you see how you've already picked up
Yeah,
blue.
I know.
But that's fine, because it is working, so you can go back and take in a little bit of white. And then you've got it's picking up the texture and it's brighter. You've got some crevices there that would be nice to show, and they will show if you take your white paint across the top of those. So, and dab it down, yeah, just like that, so you're not too thick. Otherwise, the thickness will take it, and it'll end up in the crevices, and that's what you want. Okay, now the blue is starting to come through, so it's time to clean the finger again.
Yeah. For sure.
That's clean enough. Yeah.
Well, how are you doing?
Ah, that's working. Yeah.
Good.
I don't know what it's gonna do.
Hey, whatever you want to do.
Right.
Whatever I
So
want.
do you want any more white in there?
No, I think I'm gonna leave it just the way it is.
All right. Then that one's done.
I think so.
Very carefully take that. You could take the dark and get some of the crevices there too, but it might be
I was thinking.
a little trickier because they're finer. But this one and that one and those two, which are darker, might be easier. And you notice what Joan's doing, she's studying about
Yeah.
That's a good way to do it, yeah. Yeah, you've got some exacting work and you literally hold your hand and.
That's what they do in rose mowing. I can
Yes.
never do rose mowing because I watched them.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, rose mowing is all patterns, so if you
Right.
put your pattern on, you just fill in the blanks, you know. I won't begin to say it's easy, but it's exacting.
Right.
But in some ways, having a pattern is easier
Yeah.
because you have something to follow.
But you still have to follow your pattern. You still have to stay in the lines, right?
In rose mowing, yes.
Yeah. I go to that every year in Stoughton. Have you gone
yeah.
to that?
Oh, yeah.
That's
yeah.
a fun one.
I took a rose mowing class once, and I brought it home, and my son was a little boy, and he said, "Wow, Mom, that's cool," and picked it up, and it was oil paint, so of course,
Oh.
you know what happened.
Yeah.
I
They
go,
all
"I'm
themselves.
sorry." Yeah,
Right.
there you go. So, when you're done with these, grouping them is part of the process. So, we're gonna lay these out and you can see what I mean. Let's take a group. And it's subjective. You just decide what you like, what you don't. And at this point, you might look at a total group and say, this one needs a little more color, this one needs a little more white, maybe this would be more interesting turned like so. Let's see, these two are kind of the same, so let's switch that out. And you work with it until you get something that is just visually pleasing. You're the judge. So that's how I would go about that sort of thing. And another thing that you can do when you're doing something like this, you could layer a piece of a dark blue or a bright pink or any color you chose under these and let the lower level, the lower piece of paper stick out a little bit, and that can help to unify the whole thing. So if each of these had bright pink behind them, that would pump up the pinkness. Maybe you would put a metallic gold underneath. You could trim, maybe you would actually cut this into 3 pieces and separate it a little bit. That's part of the fun and part of what makes it interesting. And I'm looking at this and thinking maybe this is better this way or perhaps this way. And we've got one more, the one that Joan's got, and so maybe that piece, let's just try that in this corner because that brings the pink into a more prominent focus. So now you look at this, you've got all these pieces, and I could come in here and say, maybe
That
this
one's a really great one.
bright pink, I need to repeat that somewhere else.
Yeah.
So maybe a little of this bright pink right in this piece would help. Maybe this one is so blue and green, maybe that one needs a little, or maybe we need to bring a little more yellow in.
Or is that one on the end, does that have pink in it? That
This one?
Or
Just a
not?
little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but we could bring more pink so that it mirrors it. In laying something like this out, I generally like to see kind of a color flow. So maybe the pinks would flow like so, or the blues would flow like so. So that you see some repetition. Each paint color may be used 2 or 3 times, and since we were all using the same paints, that was helpful. You know, maybe a little more white. But we've got some light, we've got some bright, we've got a dark here. And so the playing with it is part of what makes it fun. And if we took this and put it on our wall and framed it, you'd be amazed. Matting and framing a piece
That makes a
makes a
picture.
huge
It
difference.
definitely
It does. It's
Right.
like saying,
Right.
look at me, you know, the matting kind of pulls it all together. So we're gonna switch over to the other project
Oh.
that we were working on,
Okay.
which is kind of the same idea and kind of not. And that is the watercolor paper that we worked on and put acrylic gel medium on. The acrylic gel medium, then we took various tools, just like we did here. Instead of scoring styrofoam, we took the tools and put them into the acrylic gel medium and let it dry. So those pieces I've got over here. And oh, this one says.
Now, if
Yeah.
somebody really
Yeah.
wants them,
Yeah.
don't give them that. Don't
Yeah,
give them
that's all
theirs.
right. It's all right, they're not here and we've got
Okay, this
plenty of
one looks
acrylic
okay.
gel medium, yeah. Okay,
This is white.
so all of these have, and this one will probably show up best for the camera. All of these have texture, they're all dry, and we've used different tools to create that texture. We'll put the paint on in very much the same way, and you'll see the same idea with a different result.
Okay,
So,
that's all, okay.
okay.
You used the tools and then you went over
Yep.
with the gel.
Yes, we took acrylic gel medium and put it on in a thick layer. Do you remember the thick paste from elementary school? It was like slathering a layer of that.
Kind we used to eat.
Yeah, the kind you used to eat. This you wouldn't want to eat. I think every kid did. But then we let this all dry, and now we'll go over that with paint, and it's the same idea. So let's go ahead, and I am going to start with red, and I'm going to be bold here.
You're gonna be
And
bold,
I'm
okay.
gonna be bold.
Oh, you're, okay, now this time you just put it on
I put the paint
first.
right on here and some acrylic gel medium.
Okay, so we put
And,
the.
oh, this one will
We
be
can
strong.
put, huh?
Whatever
Yeah,
color you want to start with.
that's right.
Okay.
Ida used to ask and she always got that answer, didn't you?
You just figure it out yourself, right?
Yeah.
Figure it out yourself.
Do whatever you want to do.
Yeah. Okay.
Come on. But now should we use two colors at a time? That-
You sure
whatever we
can.
want to
Yeah,
do?
you can.
Oh,
And
okay.
I've got more of this paint than I need or want. So I'm gonna take some of that off.
Okay. Let's use up some of that since we got it, I
Sure.
guess.
Oh, thank you.
It's not wasted.
Okay,
Who knows what we're doing?
that's right. Take a little bit.
Just nobody. Okay, okay.
Okay.
She's gonna turn pink?
Oh, yeah, it's
I
pink.
like that bright pink, I really, that's a
That's
pretty color.
quinacridone magenta. It's
Oh,
really a lovely
I
color.
like that is pretty.
Okay, so first layer, and you can see a lot of texture already.
Well, she put some white with
Now,
it.
ideally, you wait and let some of this dry, and so that's what I'm gonna do right now. And let's just look at what Joan and Ida are doing.
We're having fun here.
All right. Oh, it is kind of fun getting your fingers in the paint, isn't it?
Yep.
All right. So what Joan did is she's kind of isolated certain elements. There's a circular piece in the corner here that she went with. There's a line here that she carried the gold into, so There's some thought going on there, I think. Looks like it to me. That's news to you.
Some thought going on, right?
News to you, but yeah. So, and that's that acrylic gel medium. Now you're putting that actually where your white is, just so you realize that.
What? Oh, I thought that's where I put it before.
You've got, it's all right. It'll probably be nice. And we've got plenty if you want to avoid that. But you might end up getting a little of that nice
I won't know what we're doing.
pearlescent white there.
Oh, this one's got all sorts of leaves and
Yeah.
everything in
Yeah.
there that I don't know.
And you notice there was no green anywhere here to be seen.
No, but
So-
how did we get it?
How did we get it?
I thought I was using blue.
Blue and yellow. Blue and yellow.
Bunch of fellow.
Yeah. I think always the blue and yellow mixes turning into green are much more attractive than any green paint you can buy. I rarely use green paint, but I often have green in my paintings.
Okay.
And,
So do you not buy green paint then? It's just as good not to get it?
you know, you remember how many times I have said only use a few colors?
That's right.
If you were to actually look in my paint box, well, there's an awful lot of paint colors in there.
Well, there are.
Yes, there are. I
Okay.
probably have 40 or 50 different watercolor paints and at least that many acrylic paints. And I really, truly do use only a few because I find it just has gotten me into too much trouble when I've had too many different colors of paint. I end up with colors that just aren't pleasing together. If you are, the color names that you are familiar with, like cobalt, ultramarine blue, raw sienna, burnt sienna, burnt umber, there's a cerulean blue, a light sky blue. Those are good colors. They're classics. They mix well, and you can use them in acrylic, in oil, in watercolor. You know what those paints are going to do when you mix them together. And so it is really beneficial to stick with just a handful of colors. I get a little mixed up with yellows, frankly, because there's a lot of different yellows, and I haven't found a yellow that is like my go-to yellow. But for blues, ultramarine and cobalt are definitely go-to blues. There's a color called phthalo blue, and I think phthalo is what you've got right there. And phthalo is a little bit more of a blue-green, and it mixes very vibrant colors. So that's another good color. Some folks don't want a really, really vibrant, really bright painting, and so that would be, phthalo would be just, is this what you want? So I think you've got a nice idea there with the gold. That's working out. So how are you doing here? So there's a lot of paint on that, and if you want to just rub some off with the paper towel, it might help you as you go forward. And then you can add in other colors. I mentioned having a little bit of difficulty with yellows. Today we're using Hansa Yellow Light, and I think it's working pretty well. I'm not a fan of cadmium yellow. There are other yellows. Lemon yellow is a nice mixing yellow. There's aureolin, which is kind of a greenish yellow, and sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. I'd probably lean more towards raw sienna or a yellow ochre, which is kind of a gold yellow, personally. And that's probably a question of personal taste. But those are some yellows you could try if you're trying to figure out which color to go with. And that's working out really well. I like that.
Ah, you're old.
Now Ida's going in with the paintbrush and following some of the lines that way.
Right.
Just remember that your paintbrush is going to be picking up that green as you go along, and you'll have to wipe that out, just like we had to wipe off our fingers. Yep, so, and there's nothing wrong with that, but just keep at it, or you'll end up with muddy color, red and green.
Muddy color.
Red and green make brown. Red and green make brown, and purple and orange make brown. So, you know.
I agree.
Yeah. So,
Okay, now
all right.
go and figure out
So
whatever
this is
one you-
dried a little bit, and I'm going to try some blue in here.
Oh, I do like that color.
What color?
That bright one.
Oh, that's really different.
Yeah, I like that bright color.
I actually put a little bit of water in with this blue, and I did that on purpose so it's more sheer.
Whoever did this design, it's a neat design. One of our artists.
I don't know.
Don't either. Just know a few of them because I was at the beginning classes. And I remember them. Reminds me of a frustrated Van Gogh.
Well, perhaps that's a good title.
Oh, cute.
He had so many different stages in his artwork.
Mhm.
He was so dark, and then he was bright. He was I think many people remember him for his flowers, you know,
Mhm.
more than his other things.
Sunflowers.
Sunflowers.
And
iris,
cypress
all- yeah,
trees.
right.
Yeah.
Haystacks, he did just
Mhm.
everything,
Yeah.
everything.
Some people don't know, but Picasso started out doing realism. So he had the very, very tight paintings, like
Mhm.
Rembrandt or something like that. And then as time went on, he tried to do his paintings with as few lines as possible to convey the intent. So he switched from this very detailed, very precise paintings, and over time got, you know, fewer and fewer and fewer lines.
Right.
And it's an interesting exercise to try to paint something in as few lines as you can
As you can, yeah.
Yeah.
I can s-
and convey the idea.
I can see that.
So I've put a little purple in here. Actually, this is all blue. I didn't actually have any purple at all.
Do you have any purple?
Not at all. And
That
I'm
looks
gonna
nice.
come
I like
back
that.
with a little
Oh, and now
plain
you're,
old
oh, yeah, now
water.
you're getting red, that's good.
Oh, this is, oh yeah. Yeah, that's working. Alright, so I'm going to,
Now that brings out some of your other lines.
I'm just taking off a little bit with water. This is my eraser, if you will. Okay,
Thank goodness our class is almost done.
almost, yeah. And then just a little bit of yellow, which is one thing to remember when you're painting with acrylic paint is when you put the brushes away, make sure that you have washed them very, very thoroughly, rinse several times, dab them on paper towel to see if there's any paint left in. That's really important because the acrylic paint, when it dries, is like a glue. And
Oh,
also for
okay.
that reason, when you are putting the tubes of paint away, make sure that you take a paper towel and clean off the screw-on part of the tube so that it's clean, and take a look at the cap and see that it has not got an accumulation of paint on the inside. Because you could find that you have a cap that is glued on to your paint, and that wouldn't be so good.
Okay. Get that off. Will it come out of this toothbrush?
Yeah, it depends.
Oh,
If
yeah.
it's dried
I'll do this
in,
one.
it won't.
I've been putting mine in the water.
Yeah.
You've
Let
been
it-
doing
let it
better than
soak.
me, I didn't think about
Yeah.
that.
Let it soak.
I see some of them, that one is a little more dyed than the other one.
Okay, so I've added some yellow in, which I think is nice in this piece. Let's see what you think. And it's making some of these ridges stand out a little bit more. So we'll keep with that for a bit. If you don't like something, you literally can scrub it off. A kitchen sponge
Oh my
will
goodness.
scrub this right down, yeah. I have done these where you paint the whole thing black,
Mhm.
and then once it's dry, scrub it down and all these highlights show up. And they show up as white, and that's very
Wait, the
interesting.
soap is white and the
It's white.
background is bad?
Well, right, you paint all of this black, and then when the black dries, you take a sponge and you scrub it, and the highlights all come up. In other words, you just scrub the paint off.
Okay.
And that can be very interesting. So,
Yeah.
so I'm thinking this one might be done.
Reminds me of, there you go.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, yeah, let's show them all our hands.
You're even better than I am.
Beautiful.
Here, show, yeah.
Beautiful.
Part of the fun. Okay, so you feel done, both of you?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, I don't do
I
anything
think so
more.
too.
I love my colors.
All righty,
Well.
yeah. Okay,
Whoops.
careful with that, okay. So we'll slide these down. And here are
That
three
other pretty
nice
pink one, yeah.
vibrant ones right
Yep,
there.
those are some
Very
vibrant
different
ones.
from each other.
Yeah. Again, we had just 3 colors of paint that we were using, each of us. Well, 4 if you had the metallic gold, but we had Hansa Yellow Light, Ultramarine Blue, or the Phthalo Blue, I guess, looks like Phthalo Blue, and the Quinacridone Magenta. And so your colors stay very vibrant and very pretty. And you can picture this one matted and in a frame. And the texture makes it interesting, it keeps things moving. So that's the idea. So all of this with crazy little tools we find in the kitchen there. Our little jar holder and our knives, our corn picks, and all those different things that we use to make the image and make it interesting and add some texture. So that's it for our kitchen art class today. And I thank you all for joining us. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Betty.
And hope you enjoy your work.